And I will open up our workshop session tonight. I just want to first acknowledge that Red River College is committed to ensuring that First Nations, Métis, and Inuit knowledge, cultures, and traditions are embraced and reflected in the pursuit of its mission. And an acknowledgement of these lands that we are on today and of the Red River College commitment to Indigenous people and communities, and now form part of our foundational statements that define Red River College. Red River College campuses are located on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene people, and this is also the homeland of the Métis Nation. Red River College is committed to a renewed relationship and dialogue with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people based on the principles of mutual trust, respect, and reciprocity. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories, and we dedicate ourselves to move on and forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. And before I go and introduce our guest speaker for tonight, I just want to let everybody know what the Portage Innovation Center is all about. The Portage Innovation Center is a 768 square foot space, which is on the bottom floor of the Red River College Polytech campus in Portage La Prairie, which is at 32 5th Street Southeast. It was a partnership between Red River College Polytech and Communities Building Youth Futures that came together, and we developed a space to help entrepreneurs and innovators further discover their ideas. We're working hard to create a community of innovators and supporting innovation within the city of Portage La Prairie and area. Our space has room for 4 entrepreneurs and residents, where if you're working on a new business idea or product idea, you're able to set up your very first office and get your idea up and running. So people who become an entrepreneur in residence have access to Red River College Polytech business students to help them in setting up their financial statements, marketing, business plan, all that kind of stuff. They'll also have access to our administrative assistant students to help arrange meetings that are critical to your success, making appointments, and as well as helping with event planning. If your business or product idea requires tech expertise, you'll have access to our information technology students that are in our Winnipeg campuses. Individuals that are using our facilities will also have access to a menu of Portage La Prairie business people who want to help our entrepreneurs and innovators succeed and are willing to donate their time to provide expert advice around legal issues, banking, accounting, insurance, as well as setting up networks and mentorship. In order to help our innovators with prototyping or small-scale manufacturing, in the innovation space, we also have a Fab Lab or maker space, which houses a laser engraving machine, a CryCut 3 maker machine, 3D printer, an assortment of hand tools, as well as a multi-function printer and sewing machine. And if anyone's interested in membership information on that, please contact Red River College Polytech at 204-856-1914. And our vision is to create a community, an atmosphere of innovation and entrepreneurship in Portage La Prairie and community, and to be known provincially for our innovative spirit as a community. And now I get to introduce Caroline, and I don't want to try your last name because I think I'm going to mess it up. But with
Lefebvre.
I'm sorry?
Lefebvre.
Lefebvre, okay.
Yeah.
With Intellectual Properties Canada or Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada. Welcome virtually to Portage La Prairie, Caroline, and I'm really interested to hear in what you've got to say.
Perfect, thank you. And to continue what you just said, I'm located in Gatineau, Quebec. So I'm sitting on unceded territory of Anishinaabe. It's not as numerous, but it's just as important. And thank you for acknowledging this from Portage. So today I'm here to talk to you about intellectual property. What we'll do, we're a small group, so I hope to make this very interactive. What we'll do today is we'll talk about who is the Canadian intellectual property. I'm not used to WebEx, so I might have a few issues. Okay, perfect. So what we'll do today is I'll briefly explain what's the mandate of the Canadian Intellectual Property Office, what's my role, why IP matters, IP standing for intellectual property, some types of IP and some tips, but also we'll be diving more into patents. And again, as I say, I'll make it interactive. So I'll ask you, welcome you to ask your questions as we go. Any questions you may have, please raise your hand, open the mic and ask the question and I'll answer it. Especially I want to make sure that you get as much as you need and you want from this presentation. And then at the end, I'll conclude by presenting you a few IP resources that you can access either for free or for in exchange of fees. So CIPO, the Canadian Intellectual Property Office, we're an agency operating under Innovation, Science and Economic Development. I would say that CIPO's main mandate is to grant IP in Canada. So we have examiners teams for patents, trademarks, industrial designs, and copyright. And these teams are tasked with examining any applications from Canadian or foreign applicants. And depending on which right is being sought for, the length of examination will be either very short to fairly long. So, and you will see why as we go through the presentation. As for me, I'm not an examiner. I'm an IP advisor, which means that as part of my role, part of my role is to build IP awareness and education. So our target clients would be entrepreneurs, students, professors, researchers, innovators, artists, anyone who in the course of their activity develops a project, an idea, a concept, an artistic work will/may have IP to be protected. Sorry, my voice is fading, so I hope I'll be okay till the end of the presentation. So part of our role is we do training sessions like this one. We will do one-on-ones. Sorry, I'll just drink some water. So we also have individual meetings with entrepreneurs so they can better understand. Because one part of dealing with IP, potential IP in your project is that you want to keep it as secret as possible or as general as possible when you ask questions, because part of IP protection relies on the secret, on non-disclosure. So the way to do it is book a meeting with me or my colleague Marnie, who's located in Edmonton. She's not currently here at the moment, but that's why I'm replacing her tonight. And we also attend trade shows, we do panels, conferences, any occasion we have to reach out to entrepreneurs, innovators, artists. Generating IP is a great occasion for us. So thank you again to Red River College for that. So very quickly, different types of IP we will cover during this presentation. Trademarks. Trademarks is any sign and name or logo that differentiates a product or service from those of your competitors. As I said, I'll go quickly because I'll still cover all of these during the next slides. Patents will cover functionality and technology. Copyrights will protect any original work, ranging from a piece of art to a computer code. Industrial designs will protect any visual aspect. And a trade secret is not protected at CIPO, but it's any confidential information that you must remain secret, either for a period of time or for the duration of your business activities. So why, as an entrepreneur, IP is important? For many reasons. And I really like this slide, and I like to illustrate it with a very concrete example. So when you're just about to launch a product or service, let's say you want to launch a new wireless mouse. We all know that there are a lot of these wireless mouses on the market. If you want to launch one, and especially you're not really known on the market, you will have to identify what makes your wireless mouse unique. Is it made with recycled material? Is it a very different shape? Does it have a really cool name? Whatever that feature that differentiates your wireless mouse from those of others is what you want to protect by IP. But before you make that decision, you have to make sure that what exists in my field of activity. So you can do a lot of research, and you can search patent, trademark, industrial databases, which are all available for free from from CIPO, which is Canadian, but you also have the US Patent and Trademark Office, you have European, African, you have China. All the countries in the world do have a few IP databases available for you. So knowing what's on the market, knowing what your competitors might have come up with in the recent few months, will make sure that whatever you want to put out on the market is new, is unique, and has a lot of chances to attract clients. So what it is by identifying what makes it unique, what makes it different, will propel you at the edge over your competitors. You will be ahead of competitors. You'll be the best. People will rely on you. They will say, "Oh, I really like that wireless mouse. I want to buy it. It's much better than what I have right now." So building on that, having that IP protected or in the midst of being protected, you're in much better position to obtain financing. I've been with CIPO for 15 years. 15 years ago, talking about IP was very difficult because it was not well recognized. And more today, banks when lending money, investors, venture capital, angel investors, sorry, and most of federal provincial programs that are leaning towards innovation, everybody who may provide money financing to an entrepreneur, to an innovator, will ask for an IP strategy from the applicant. And by an IP strategy, don't worry, we don't need a 25-page document that's cast in stone and will not move through time. No, we just want to make sure that as a lending institution, and if you develop a new product, a new technology, a new service, that it will be protected. As an example, next time you watch Dragon's Den or Shark Tank, just pay attention to the dragons or the investors. Not every time, but fairly often, they will ask the participant, do you have a patent on your technology? Do you have a trademark on your product? That because, and we'll see in the next few slides, having IP granted provides you with an exclusivity on specific markets. So you get a patent in Canada, it's protected across Canada. Same for a trademark. So for the investor, having an IP protected makes it more interesting in the sense that once you've got your IP granted, you can control, you can decide who will use it, sell it, manufacture it. If it's not protected, it means that it's public domain, so anyone can to sell it, manufacture, and use it without your consent, and also more important, without paying you royalties in exchange. So as an investor, as a dragon, it becomes much more interesting to get at exclusivity because you increase your chance to make more money with that product or service protected by IP. So moving down the list, identifying what you have that's unique, and getting financing, making sure you're ahead of competitors will help you achieve your business goals. And I'll change my example. But let's say you're the manufacturing business and you're developing ski equipment, high tech, leading edge sport equipment. Let's say downhill skiing. So you have to be strategic because there's a cost attached to protecting IP. Fairly reasonable when it comes to copyright and fairly expensive when it comes to patent. So you will not, as an entrepreneur, as an innovator, you will not file for patent protection in every country in the world. Way too expensive. So being strategic and knowing that it's a winter sport product that you're trying to sell, that you're putting on the market, logically and strategically, you will seek protection in countries where there is a wide range of winter sports and you have a wide possible potential clientele. So let's focus on Northern America, Northern Europe, and maybe a few countries, let's say Italy. But countries where there's no snow are not your target countries. So you'll be selective in your strategic countries, and you will you'll be seeking protection in those countries. So by obtaining that IP protection in those countries, of course, you secure your markets. And again, it's an exclusivity you get on those markets. So you need to make sure that you can monitor that IP. You will have a network of users, manufacturers, distributors, making sure that your IP is not counterfeited or infringed. Because when we grant IP, when you register IP at CIPO, we don't monitor for you. As the owner of the IP right, you have the duty to monitor and report any infringement / counterfeiting. So ultimately, you've developed something that's very cool. That's respond to client needs. You're increasing your clients, your collaborators. You've got financing. You're present on multiple markets because your product is extremely cool. So over time, you build your reputation and goodwill, which will increase your customer base and even your partners and collaborators. You might get a strategic alliance with an Olympic committee, let's say, because you are reputable for developing high-tech sport equipment. Any questions so far? All right. Okay, so let's start quickly with trademarks. I have a question for you, three of you attending the conference. Do you know how many trademarks you see in a day all around you?
My guess is hundreds.
Hundreds? Anyone else with a different idea? What about 1,500? It's an average. Look around you. You're surrounded by trademarks. Clothing, food, beverage, technology, cars, appliances, everything has a trademark. So the trademark, as I said before, is the sign that will differentiate your product and services over your competitors. People will decide do they prefer Apple or Samsung, Tim Hortons or which in Ottawa we have Bridget Coffee. So they like a brand, and unless there's an accident, let's say, and I don't know, in terms of coffee, let's say at one point they go and coffee is not as good, they may not go back to that coffee shop. But the trademark is used to make sure that you buy and you always come back to the same product because you attach a certain quality, you attach some feelings, some emotions to it. An example I like to give when I talk about trademarks is, let's say for me, when I have a headache, I will use Motrin because to me, Motrin within 20 minutes, my headache has lowered a lot, has reduced a lot, and maybe I'll take one or two more, but usually it's pretty good. But we just had that discussion today at work, actually. Someone said, oh, for me, it's Advil. Advil works the best for me. And someone will say, well, for me, it's generic, but it's the same thing. So in between our three preferences, there's no right or wrong answer. What it is an attachment to a specific brand because for us, it resonates as quality. So that's why companies will make tremendous efforts in gaining customers, but in making sure they keep them, but they refer the company to a potential future clients. Think of Apple, where every time they come up with a new phone, there's a big buzz and people line up for hours to get that new phone, even though the phone they have is still really good. So it's all about the buzz about a product, and it's about having access to the best product in your mind. So that's all about trademarks. So it could be a name, like Apple, or what do I have around me? My mouse is I don't even know the brand of my mouse, which is, no, I don't even know. But let's say here, I don't have, my God, it's weird. I'm looking for brands around me and I can't find any, I'm sorry. So my screen is a Philips, my computer is a Toshiba. So these are brands that, I purchased and I like. So chances are when I purchase them again, I will buy the same brand. So as I said before, also having a trademark registered provides you an exclusivity in Canada. That's something you have to consider. A trademark that is protected in Canada is not protected anywhere else in the world. So you do have to build a trademark strategy, establish in which countries you're planning to sell your product or service, and seek protection, trademark protection in those countries. So having that trademark registered provides you with an exclusivity, and you can prevent anyone from using your mark without your consent. But even more so, a registered trademark will also protect you not only for a very similar brand that may come up on the market, but for any brand that would be considered what we call confusing. An example would be, and that's my colleague gave me that example not too long ago. Let's say your last name is McDonnell, and you want to open a burger shop, and you want to call it McDonnell. Well, chances are it'll be rejected because it sounds too much the same like McDonald's, and it would be confusing, especially if you have a golden arch as a logo. Like you're really confusing with the existing brand. So the reason behind that is to make sure that yes, clients are not confused and they purchase or they acquire the right product or service. In Canada, you don't have to register your trademark. It's a mix of automatic use and registration. If you don't register your trademark, or if the trademark is not registrable, you'll see why at the next slide why it may not be registrable. It's not a protection across Canada. It's a local protection in your own community or a bit extended, but not too far. And if someone across Canada wants to register the similar trademark, it would be harder for you to demonstrate you'll be using it before. But it's doable, but it's more difficult because it's not listed officially in the registry of trademarks. In Canada, a trademark is valid for 10 years from the date of registration and can be renewed every 10 years after, as long as you use the product or service that's attached to it. So bottom line, you have a registered trademark, use it, make sure the public knows you're using it, and then it's easier to renew it at the end of the protection period. So something you need to consider when developing a trademark, I'll add one more category. I just mentioned not registrable trademarks. If your trademark is perceived as injurious or offensive, it will not be registered. If it's too descriptive, if it's, let's say I'm opening a flower shop and I call it Rose and Daisy or Carolyn's Flower Shop, it's too descriptive. It's okay when you want to incorporate your business. You can have a very descriptive name, but in terms of trademark, it's different. We don't recommend it because it makes it a weak trademark, but it's also that let's say you call it the flower shop. It kind of gives exclusivity on a common terminology that no one else after that could use. So that's why we try to prevent that. So try to find an original word. Same with personal names, not recommended, because the same we don't want to give exclusivity on someone's name, then preventing others from using it. When it becomes more interesting and when you get into suggestive marks, let's say chapters for books. We all know chapters, we see the logo, it's the open book. One can argue that, yeah, but books are made of chapters. Yes, but you don't buy the chapter at the cash register. You buy the book, you buy the cushions, you buy pillows, candles, whatever it is, to like the cocooning around reading. So chapters, considered as a suggestive mark, is a really cool brand. Something else that could be that's reducing the risk of being descriptive or confusing, any dictionary word that has no relation to what you're selling. Apple for computers, Roots for clothing, Indigo for books. Again, those brands have acquired that reputation on markets. Now we know Apple sells computers and telephones and iPods, iPads, and everything. We know Roots sell clothing, but at the beginning of their activities, nothing would lead you to say, oh, Apple, that must be a computer company. No, so that's, again, you're reducing the risk of being confusing or to be, how can I say this, to to create confusion, but also to be infringing on someone else's trademarks. And then ultimately, one of the strongest thing you could do is create a word. Kodak, Kleenex, Polaroid were all words that were created, and they gained their notoriety over the years by being used and by providing high quality products in their field. Questions?
How much does it cost to register a trademark?
For a good, I always forget to cover that angle. When you register a trademark in Canada at CIPO, it starts at $340. Depending on, and that's a bit technical, but you identify a trademark with a list or a class or a list of classes that we call the class of product and services. So let's say you're a microbrewery in your town and you want to register a trademark, but you got the microbrewery. There's also a restaurant attached to it, and you sell products like caps, glasses, bucks, t-shirts, whatever. That's another class. And then you decide to offer workshops on how to brew your own beer at home. So probably, and I don't know the classes by heart, but let's say you start at 340. So microbrewery and restaurant might be the same class, but selling t-shirts, mugs, whatever you can is another class, and then workshop would be another class. So it's $100 per additional class. So that would make you $600 per se. And that's when you do all the work alone. But you can hire a trademark agent. So these costs, the administrative cost, will be, you will add the professional fees of the trademark agent. You're looking at around total of $1,500 to $2,000. But you can also hire your trademark agent just to do the research to make sure that the name, the logo you have in mind has really high chances to get protected because it doesn't seem to exist. Or you can hire them for the entire process because what you expect, and it's the third bullet, your application will not be approval immediately. It has to go through an examination process where an examiner will look at your application. And more than likely, especially if there's no trademark agent working with you, there will be some changes to make. So it might be to add information, to remove information, just to make sure that once a trademark is registered, it really it protects your product, your service legally, but also in terms of marketing. So it sadly right now, the process is very long. When I started at CIPO, we were talking about 12 to 15 months for the process. Now we're looking at around 3 years for a first report from an examiner. So it's very long, but it doesn't prevent you from using your trademark. There's just a risk that at the end of the process, it's rejected, which could be very costly. But what you want to do is maybe validate with a trademark agent that the potential of registration is very high. So then you're fairly confident that at the end of the process, you won't have paid for nothing. Something I've mentioned briefly, when you incorporate your company, it's not a trademark protection. And I insist on that because it's a comment, it's a question we get very often. People think, oh, I'm protected, I'm incorporated. No, it's two different entities. Incorporation will protect more your legal entity as an entrepreneur, as a business, but a trademark is all about the branding. So if you have a trademark, if it's not registered, you identify it as a TM, trademark. Once it's registered, it becomes registered, so it's circled R. And here I gave you the link to the trademark database, which at the end, I will send a PDF of that presentation so you can circulate with participants.
Wonderful, thank you. And just one other question. So if I was to register a trademark, some of the ones that you had up, does that cover the font? Does it cover the color of the lettering? Does it cover a graphic or symbol as well?
Good question. In terms of font, if you want to register a name and the font is not important, just apply with regular like Arial or Times New Roman. But if there's a specific font, make sure you're allowed to register trademark using that font, but make sure you apply with that font. So to make sure that this one is registered. In terms of logo, something also that people don't tend to be aware of, unless there's very specific colors you want to use, apply in black and white, because then all the colors will be protected. And again, going back to the microbrewery example, let's say on your website, you can have one logo with different colors, identifying each kind of activities you're offering. So it becomes clear to the client. And so let's say, I don't know, workshops are in pink and yellow, and products are in orange and brown. So visually it makes it more interesting. But again, if you have very specific colors you really want for your logo, well, apply for those colors. It really depends on the use of it. In terms of shape, very important. We can protect a shape once it has gained notoriety on markets. Classic example, the Coca-Cola bottle was in industrial design when it was created. Protection was expired, so it was so famous that to this day, and this bottle was created in 1915, 1916, to this day, Coke has an exclusivity on the shape because it's now a trademark pretty much around the world. So no one can legally sell beverage in that bottle unless they're Coca-Cola or licensed by Coca-Cola. And again, do the test tonight. Look at a bottle, even if there's no logo, you still know it's a Coca-Cola bottle. Does that answer the question? All right.
Yeah.
Cool. So I spent a bit more time on patents because I could feel that was more important. So patents will protect any functionality, solutions to a problem, technology that respond to those three criteria. And it's three, absolutely three, and no less than three. It has to be new to the world. And even though you're only protecting in Canada and the States, let's say, if the technology exists anywhere else in the world, you will not be granted that patent. It also has to be useful. It has to solve a problem. And it may not be a technology that you've worked for decades in a lab searching for a solution. It could be something that may look very simple, but it's so practical, it brings such a solution that yes, it would be patented. And it has to be non-obvious. And non-obvious means that for person that are experts in the art, there has to be what I call the wow factor. Like, I should have thought about it. It looks obvious, but no one has thought of it, so it makes it non-obvious. So there has to be an inventive step, an ingenuity in the process of inventing that solution. And again, patents are territorial. So a patent granted in Canada protects you in Canada only, nowhere else in the world. And if I jump right away into the cost, if you look at CIPO fees for 20 years, validity of a patent, you're looking at between $3,000 and $4,000. Hiring a patent agent will significantly increase the fees. We're looking at between $10,000 to $15,000 per country. So that's why, going back to my ski equipment example, it's important that you identify strategically all the countries you may be conducting business and identify as much as possible because of the novelty aspect. Let's say you don't file in Belgium for your technology, and in 5 to 6 years, boom, Belgium comes out as a big potential market. It's too late for patent protection because it's no longer new. So that's a kind of question you may be asking yourself. You'll be consulting with an IP advisor, either myself or my colleague, or a patent agent. The patent will be valid for 20 years, but from the date of filing, not from the date of granting. And after the 20 years, you can't renew it. It becomes public domain. And again, it could be strategic. Some companies may decide to abandon a patent before its 20 years limit for different reasons. Strategically, it doesn't make sense to hold on to that patent. It's obsolete, whatever it is. There's many reasons why you could decide to abandon a patent. Application process could be fairly long depending on many factors, but one of them being the complexity of the patent. But we do have some process, including for green technologies. If you're filing for a patent that's in the green technology field, you can get it expedited at no extra cost. So it's fairly used, and it just means that your application will be put at the top instead of the bottom of the pile. Something also very important about Canada is going back to the novelty factor. If there's any disclosure, voluntary or not, about your invention before you file, Canada and the States will provide you with a 1-year grace period, which means that, let's say you attend a conference and you talk about your invention today. Canada and the States will still allow you to file for patent. However, but you have 1 year, not an extra day. Countries in Europe have zero tolerance about when it comes to disclosure, so you'll not be allowed to file for patent in Europe. Some countries in the world, Australia, Japan, South Korea, and China, do have some flexibility also between 6 and 12 months, depending on the disclosure the context of the disclosure. But by and large, before you have to discuss a potential invention, potential patentable technology, make sure you speak with an IP advisor, and we will tell you what to do, how to protect you, what would be the appropriate actions to take before talking about your invention. Obviously, you meet with me or my colleagues, IP advisors. We're bound by secrecy, so we don't have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. However, if you have to talk to potential manufacturers, distributors, it's more than recommended to have those non-disclosure agreements. So again, to make sure that your invention is new, there's a lot of research you can do online. Search the patent databases, search websites, scientific literature, just to make sure that what you're developing is new, because what you want to avoid is to spend a lot of effort and money developing something and then boom, you realize it exists. So consult those regularly, do intelligence gathering on your sector, on the market, on competitors, just to make sure, again, that you're not working on something that exists and then wouldn't be patented. About the novelty, good news is an improvement on something that exists could be patentable as long as it's new, inventive, and useful. That advice will be coming more from a patent agent, but you can do a test with either your colleagues or sounding board, let's say, to make sure, like, is this significantly improved from what exists? Again, having your patent granted will help you sign the right agreements for manufacturing, distributing, and selling in countries where you've sought and you've acquired protection. And in exchange of royalties, what it means is that people will use your technology and will pay you royalties for the use of it. So it becomes very important. Something I hear a lot about, mainly patent, but IP in general, is that, oh, I don't want a patent because I don't have the money to defend myself in case of litigation. Yes, the patent document is there to protect you in case of litigation, but it's also a commercial tool. You want to be making money out of your patent. You want to be able to commercialize it, grant licenses, sell it if that's your business model. But you want to use this document, this technology, for the benefit of your company. It's not only a defensive mechanism, it's a commercializing tool. That's technical details. I'll skip that part. So how to ensure the novelty? As I said, don't talk to it. Limit conversations about your technology. If you're working in a lab, make sure everyone has signed confidentiality agreements. Talking to potential partners, collaborators, manufacturers, distributors, non-disclosure agreements. The limit to these agreements is the good faith of those signing them. Let's say we have an agreement together, and then I decide one day that I no longer want to do business with you. I decide I'm going to fight this, so I disclose information. You haven't filed for patent yet. You've lost your chance to get a patent. Canada and the States with some differences and some flexibility, but by and large, I've disclosed information, so it'll be tough to obtain that patent or to obtain the full protection you were looking for. So I'm giving you here three databases: Canada, US, and the worldwide is from WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization. In that case, what's really interesting is you have a specific technology and you want to make sure if it exists. This will tell you pretty much everywhere in the world if it's been patented. So it's a very strong tool. Of course, again, literatures will be helping you, but something also to consider is limitation. Patents have to be drafted in the language of the country. So let's say they only file for patent in Japan and in China. You may not understand fully what it is. So you may be filing for something that exists, but it was only filed in Japan or in China. Examiners, patent agents should be able to tell you, but you might have spent a lot of money developing it, not knowing it exists already. Sorry, another limitation would be information available. And I'm talking about a real example that someone shared with me at a conference years and years ago. They were a small company based in Quebec, and they were not inclined to patent everything they were developing. So for those, I would say, less important technologies they were developing, they would write an article and they said, we write it in a Mongolian magazine or a Sri Lankan magazine in a language that's widely spoken in the world. And they would monitor patent applications. And they would say, oh, wait a minute, your patent application is not new. We do have an article written 2 years ago. So for them, it required a lot of work, but for them, it made sense for the non-core technologies, let's say. Again, patents are territorial. There's no global patent. There's no international patent. If someone tells you're infringing my global patent, first ask them for the Canadian document. If it's only an American patent and it's not protected in Canada, it's free to use. You don't owe them any royalties. And I'm saying this because it happened to me, clients reaching out, they got a cease and desist letter. They're like, oh my God, I'm infringing someone's patent. First question is, ask them for the Canadian documents. And if they come back to you with a Canadian document, then we'll talk. And they never come back because there's no Canadian document. As I said, the cost of patenting being fairly significant, you want to make sure you will file in the countries that are strategic for you. And even sometimes when I speak with startups or very young companies, they will make a decision to say probably patent in 2 or 3 countries in the world. Those are very specific for them. Then they know there's a market, but they will working at developing an improvement, a generation 2.0. And then you'll be analyzing markets and say, okay, maybe I've done Canada, States, and Mexico for my first technology, coming out with a new technology in 4 to 5 years. Oh, realizing that, oh, South Korea and France were big customers of my technology. I'll file my patent, my 2.0 patent in those countries. So it's a way, there's other ways also, but it's one of them that's fairly strategic and doesn't cost too much. One question we get, remember when I said at first that a trade secret is any information kept confidential? Question we get often is, should I get a patent or a trade secret? What's the real difference? What are the pros and cons for each? Let's start with patent being a full disclosure. You want to get a patent on a technology, you need to write, you need to do the entire storytelling. You need to identify exactly what is new, inventive, and useful. We want to make sure by doing so that you apply for a patent, then you disclose all the information, and we foster innovation. So based on your document, your patent document that's been granted, someone can read it and will improve your technology in exchange of royalties. And think of the cell phone. Way back when, some 30 years ago, the cell phone was extremely big, not quite reliable, and could barely make a phone call. Now they do everything, and they're very small. So patents have been improving with time. Um, and cell phone industry is fairly interesting for that. But what I'm trying to explain here is that we disclose the entire information for the benefit of innovation. Trade secret is a secret, so there's no one or very limited amount of people have access to the information, but it has to have a commercial value. The Coca-Cola recipe, the New York Times bestseller list, the algorithm that decides on those the books making the list. These are all secrets. And when you're asking yourself, should I patent my technology or should I go for trade secret? One of the angle you may want to consider is is the reverse engineering possible? Yes, patent might be a better option. Tearing down a toaster will help anyone knowing about electrical and mechanical engineering, how it works and how it can be improved. Patents are probably more a better option. Trade secret, drinking Coke, we know the ingredients. We know we know the ingredients. We don't know the recipe. Same with, it's used a lot in agri-food because it's not by drinking something or eating something that you can extract the quantity or can understand exactly the process to making it. So in this case, trade secret is probably more interesting. The caveat to trade secret is that someone discloses the recipe, it's game over. If the Coke recipe gets stolen in public, fine, it's fine. Coke can still make the recipe, sell it, but there'll be other people doing it at the same time, probably for cheaper. So that's the risk of disclosing any information on a trade secret. And so value added by patents, why would you patent? For protection, to secure your markets, and to boost your investors' confidence. Remember the example of Dragon's Den, Shark Tank. Investors, as I say, more and more will look into the IP strategy. And as I've mentioned before, and that's for patent, but the same goes for trademarks, industrial designs, and copyrights. But having IP granted will help you increase your revenue. You can grant licenses. You can acquire licenses from others because their technology would, let's say, you can acquire technologies you can acquire licenses on technologies that would be great for you to increase your revenues, to increase your business model, to improve a product that exists already. And having patents, trademarks, copyrights, and industrial designs will increase your market value. You want to sell your company, IP portfolio will be considered in the value of your company. And as I've mentioned, it increases your chance to access government funding, federal, provincial, municipal, and it builds your competitive advantage. People will recognize you as developing the best technology in a specific field, in ski boots, in I don't know, in any car engine equipment, let's say. So you build your advantage and people will want to work with you to acquire technology, to get licenses with you. So I hope I'm fairly convincing in that regards, because that's very, very important. Again, not patents don't get granted in a blink of an eye. You have to be patient. Again, you can hire a patent agent, and you have to find an agent that is specialized in your field, because you want to make sure that he represents you when negotiating with a patent examiner who's equally competent and specialized in that field. So at CIPO, we have 4 branches: mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and I always get confused, but biotech and chemistry or something. And yeah, biotech and chemistry. So examiners receiving applications are specialists in their field, and they'll be negotiating with a patent agent. So again, at the end of the process, your patent is granted, protects your technology, technically and legally. And you're reducing the risk. There's always a risk, but I think a strong patent will help you mitigate the risk of litigation in the future. But again, that's their story. Fee structures on the CIPO's website, but you do have yearly maintenance fees. You have application fees, request for examination, granting, and then the yearly fees. So as I said, CIPO fees over the course of 20 years is about $3,000 to $4,000. Something very, very important here when it comes to patent, we have to differentiate inventorship and ownership. You may be the inventor, but you may not be the owner. And that depends on the environment within which you're operating. You're alone at home, you're what we call an inventor, you're in the basement, you invent something that's really cool. You're the inventor, you file for patent protection, you'll be the owner. You work for a company, pharmaceutical, car equipment, whatever it is, you're hired to develop products. You're the inventor, co-inventor. You're not the owner. The owner is whoever pays for you to develop that technology. So yeah, it's very important when it comes to patent. We can invalidate a patent if someone's name is missing or has been added for no reason. That's a work that a patent agent will work with you also, is to make sure that everybody is represented and that no one who shouldn't be on the patent document is there. So the owner is the one who will be applying for a patent and will be the one deciding and respond. Oh, geez, I'm sorry. I forgot to turn off my cell phone. It's turned off now. Okay, so yeah, so just make sure that everyone's role are clearly defined. And in terms of co-inventors and inventors are anyone who has had a significant contribution to the invention. If it's in a lab and a technician is testing whatever product or whatever it is, doesn't make recommendation, it's not a co-inventor. Co-inventors have to have a significant contribution to the end result. How long do I have until, is it 7:30 or 7?
We had an hour booked.
Oh, okay, so goodness, I'm sorry, I always speak way too much. Okay, so we have what, 5 minutes left?
Give or take, yeah.
Okay, so I'm glad though we covered patents because I know that was fairly important. So quickly, a trade secret is the opposite of a patent. There's no registration, and the protection will last. Well, protection, the secret will last as long as it's maintained. And there's different means to protect a secret by locking it, limiting number of people that have access to it, encrypting, password, etc. The risk is that try not to disclose too much, because the more people you talk to, the more you increase your chance of a disclosure. Industrial design, as I've mentioned, is all about the visual aspect, a shape, an ornament, and it has to be attached to a finished product. So the bottle, as I've mentioned, Coca-Cola, again, it's territorial rights. So a design protected in Canada is not protected anywhere else in the world. Industrial design, you'll see different names across the world. In the States, it's patent design as opposed to industrial design. The names are escaping me right now, but you have to make sure you apply for the correct right if you're going foreign. And in Canada, its protection will last up to 15 years from the date of filing. Some countries may go up to 24, 25 years. Some will only be for 10 years. Same as for patent. There's a 12-month grace period if there's any disclosure. Again, excluding you in Europe if you're planning to file for design protection in Europe. Remember, industrial designs are all about about the look, not the functionality. It has to be new and original. And the good research would be, of course, the patent databases, but search the net, search online. Any platform that has images, search for them, just to make sure that the design you've developed is new and original. copyright original work from a computer code, a picture, a novel, choreography, etc. Canada will last for the life of the author plus 50 years, soon to be changed, but for now, consider it's 50 years. And it protects you automatically upon creation in 156 countries in the world. However, we do suggest that for $50, you get your certificate at CIPO, which will prove your ownership. We don't ask for a copy of the work, so we rely on good faith of the applicant. And let's say I do have a blog. It's a personal blog, nothing to do with IP, but it's me and my life. I got a copyright protection on it. The good news with that is any new article that I write and publish, they are protected on the original copyright. So it's under the umbrella of that website. So I don't have to pay $50 every time I write an article. And I think I have 2 more slides. Yeah, 3 more slides. I've mentioned IP agents, trademark agents, patent agents. Those are agents working in private cabinets that will provide that opinion that CIPO employees cannot provide. So they can provide an opinion on, is this patentable? Is this trademark highly registrable? They will prepare the application. They will respond to any examination reports from CIPO or the US PTO or any IP office around the world, which we will not do for you. At CIPO, we do have 2 different services. The Client Service Center, and they're fantastic for provide information on the application process, finding the right form, paying the fees, provide update on your applications. And as for me and my colleagues, IP advisors, we do training sessions such as this one. We will help you develop your IP strategy. We'll have one-on-one sessions with you. All the services on this slide are provided for free. So yeah, there's no cost, and we may even talk 3, 4, 5 times together, and it's okay. There's no limitation on the number of times we can discuss. You will have Marnie, my colleague based in Edmonton. You will have her address, so you're more than welcome to reach out to her. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. We have a podcast. We're really oriented towards social media. So that concludes. I tend to talk a lot, so.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Does anyone have any
Pleasure.
questions at all for Caroline?
Just a quick one. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned briefly the cost of defense, and it seems to me to defend a patent, if it's a good one, is it more likely to need defense? And
the costs I've mentioned were the administrative fees from CIPO, and then the patent agent fees that will be drafting the claims, representing you. But in terms of defense, it depends on so many factors. It will depend on the length of the litigation. It will depend on many, many factors.
And is it true that the majority of patent defense or patent litigation originates in the US?
Yes. I mean, I've heard so many stories, but I think there's a cult, and don't want to say or pronounce myself on this, but the states tend to be more litigious than they tend to go more into litigations than Canadians as a starting point. And what we try to promote at CIPO is don't go straight to litigation. Try negotiation. Try someone who's using your patent. That's because they need and they love your technology. They might become a partner. Who knows? Try to negotiate directly with them. And then we do not CIPO, but EPIC, which is the Intellectual Property Institute of Canada. They do offer arbitration and mediation services. So you can try to negotiate before you go into costly and lengthy litigation.
And you mentioned, that if there's a patent and there are particular countries where the product may be consumed to a greater level.
Mhm.
What if those countries where maybe the product wants to be consumed to a greater level are India and China? How great is the counterfeit risk?
It really depends. There are some strategies that one can take to prevent as much as possible infringement. For instance, if it's like a very high tech and I would say even like physically a big invention, like an aircraft engine, let's say, okay? Segment production in China, in different states, different factories, and get it assembled in Canada, and get all the molds and everything information back to Canada. That's one strategy. But then again, you may want to file for protection, and it's a strategy, and sometimes is it worth doing it? It depends on what you're selling, what you're offering, depends on competitors on that market. I know large companies that I will not mention, but they tell me they don't even file in Canada because there's no competitors in Canada. They will file elsewhere.
Okay, so if a patent were filed in Canada first, there's
Mm-hmm.
a year where it protect
Yeah, okay, I see your question. Yeah. Usually, traditionally, I'll be honest with you, Canadian applicants will file in the States first, and it's a mechanism called provisional patent, which we have an equivalent in Canada, but it's not as highly recognized. And it's also testing the American market because it's much bigger than Canadian market. We have to admit it. So they will file for provisional, which means that they have 1 year to sort of complete the application, but you cannot add any element. If you find a new element, if you find a new functionality, it would sadly be another patent. But let's say you file in the States provisional tomorrow, December 8th. You have 1 year to decide, okay, in which countries then should I be filing? So let's say you add Canada, South Korea, China, Mexico. So after that, you may want to decide, okay, I've got 5 to 6 potential countries. I will explore what we call the PCT, Patent Cooperation Treaty, that gives you access to 146, 47 countries. And you may decide, okay, like I'll be applying to 10 to 15 countries. So that gives you another 18 months to finalize your decision as to in which countries you will ultimately file.
and so I think I missed part of that answer. My computer was buffering here, but
Okay.
I did look up that. Now you're buffering again. Anyway, Guy, can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've lost visual, but so that additional time,
Mm-hmm.
does it is it partly designed, that additional time, to provide an opportunity, let's say, to sell a patent or to
It
develop
could.
licensing agreements?
It absolutely, and it could also be an additional time to seek partnerships. You know, some smaller companies will look for larger corporations to acquire licenses based on the fact that there's a patent pending. So having a patent pending demonstrates that you're serious in your strategy and you're planning to get the full protection.
So at what point, you probably said this already, but what point is something patent pending?
Patent pending is as soon as you apply until the decision has been made to grant it or to reject it. Tom is having problems.
Yeah, I think Tom's having some more problems there.
Mm-hmm. So regardless, I mean, You have my email address. You can send it to Tom and you can approach because Marnie's on leave for now. So that's why I'm
Okay.
replacing her tonight.
Perfect.
But I'll be more than happy. And yeah, so I'll send you the PDF probably in a few minutes.
That would be wonderful. I will share it out with
Cool.
everyone who is registered for tonight, and I'll make sure that I get Tom your email address so he can ask you a little bit more about what he's trying to understand around the
Super,
patent
yeah.
on there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Really appreciate
you.
it. And I know I took 3 pages of notes, and if anybody wasn't able to take as many notes as they want, we are going to post this recording up on our YouTube channel, so you'll be able to access it later. Thank you so
Excellent.
much, Caroline, and to everyone
Pleasure.
who tuned in, and have a great evening.
Bye.